So I gotta share a testimony with y'all. Actually, there's a couple that has happened in the last couple weeks. Some really amazing testimonies. So, let's see. And I'm going to tell on myself. This channel's always been the good, the bad, the ugly, all of the in between. You know, no matter the cost to myself, whatever. And I know I'm going to take some major persecution over this, as if nobody else ever does this. Not like everybody probably does this, but nobody will admit to it. And so the one person being the somebody that will admit to it will take all the persecution for everybody that's ever did this sin. Whatever, people. Throw your stones. Okay, so I've had some addictions, like we all have. We all have addictions, whether we want to accept it, acknowledge it, realize it, look deeper in and find those addictions and then overcome them, whatever. We all have some addictions unless we are really seasoned in the faith and have worked diligently to overcome those addictions. Okay, then there may be a select few that truly have no addictions. But anybody that is not seasoned in the faith, we all have addictions. And for the less seasoned, the more addictions that we're going to have. Well, for every man and woman out there, there may be the exception here or there, okay? And I guess, like some of the exceptions will be if you've had vasectomies or this or that. Some exceptions will be if you're up in age and you just have no libido left. But for every other person that still has a working libido, you know what I'm talking about. You do the manly thing or the, private woman thing. We're just going to call it that. All right. But there's also another addiction that goes along with that statistics show. I'm just pulling a number out of thin air right now. Just keeping it real, but I think it's somewhere around 75 to 85% of people admit to watching porn. Like I said, throw your stones as if you've never done it. Whatever. And if you're married, maybe you never have done that, and that's great. And maybe you've always just been a believer and the Lord's always protected you from that. And if that's the case, great, beautiful. Anybody that's ever lived in the flesh, though, I can guarantee has watched porn and has pleasured themselves, unless they got married straight out the gate and like just some weird occurrence happened. Most people do this, though, in today's society. Anyway, so I'm not an exception to that. I've been crying out to the Lord for a long time to get past all that, to break those addictions. And I've done good for seasons, and then I fall back off the horse like any striving Christian trying to do right has dealt with as we try to overcome addictions. So I would do great for seasons and I'd fall off. Do great for seasons and then fall off. And when I say a season, when it comes to this particular subject, a season, for me, a good season for me was free of the addiction for maybe as much as a week, give or take. And that maybe that would be free from both. Sometimes, well, sometimes I could maybe push out a week and a half, 2 weeks from the addiction of the porn and justifying the other as I'm working on one sin at a time, which is fine. It helped get me through the season by remembering that I just need to work on one addiction at a time until I, but the problem with this one is that both those addictions really go hand in hand with each other. So you really, on that particular addiction, you kind of got to work on both of them at the same time, or it don't work. Anyway, so I was laying here, I'm going to say about 3.5, 4 weeks ago. It's probably been 3.5 weeks ago, if I'm keeping it real. Yeah, about 3.5 weeks ago, I'm laying here, right here on this couch. And I thought I'll just roll over on this couch and take me a little cat nap before I carry on with my day. And I was feeling lonely. I've been working on the addictions. I had been doing good over the past probably month or two, as of about 3.5 weeks ago, in that I think looking at porn was very minimal. And the self-pleasuring was fairly minimal as well. Still yet, there would always be that caving moment. So, I rode over that one day. I'm laying on this couch. I'm facing that way. And my thumb get cut off. I'm facing that way, towards the back of the couch. And I've done this many times, but there was something about that time. I was just pouring it all out to the Lord. Pouring just everything out to the Lord, like, I don't want to do this, And even though I've said the same prayers over and over many times, like I said, there's just something different about this one. I just pouring it all out, crying and everything, because I was so grieved. I feel so close to the Lord at times, but then the craving for the addiction rears its ugly head in there. Of course, that's, Satan and his fallen angels, coming in, whispering in the mind and, causing all that division. And then, of course, the brain, whatever, decides to go ahead and cave in. Well, anyway, I was just pouring it all out to the Lord. Laying here trying to go to sleep at the same time, expressing to him that, how grieved I am every time I fail. And I hadn't actually fallen at that point, but there is a certain sensation when you go a while without giving into an addiction of any kind. But especially this one, there's a certain sensation that begins to happen within the body that just is like, it just makes you want to clench up and either go take care of that sensation, or otherwise you're just getting real tense, almost hostile, mad, angry. For me, that's the way I was getting. I was starting to get just real tensed up, angry, hostile, like, God, I don't know how much longer I can take this. I'm doing the best that I can here. I'm fighting these urges. I'm fighting them, but I pleaded to you, please take total control of this situation. I give it to you, my Lord. And I'm laying it in thick. So anyway, I'm laying here on this couch that day. And I'm crying out to him, trying to take a nap at the same time, but I never really did fall asleep. I kind of started to kind of doze just a hair, but not really, if that makes any sense. I had my eyes shut, but I wasn't asleep. And all of a sudden, I hear this female say something to me. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, no. What? Like, I didn't even bother to move when I heard it. Like, at first, I don't know if I thought it was coming from my TV, and it took me a few moments to realize it wasn't coming from my TV, but the voice did come from the direction of my TV. But all my doors are locked. There's nobody else in here. No way anybody can get in here. And I think at that point I was like, must be somebody outside messing around. After about, I don't know, 30 seconds or a minute, I finally decided to look up here at my cameras, and there's nobody out there. And I'm like, wait a minute. I sat up, I look at my TV, and I had some music going, some instrumental music, but with no words. And I'm like, I've never heard that instrumental music have anybody talk ever at all. Now, I had probably laid there maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes by that point, since the time I'd heard the voice. And I was like, let me rewind this TV and just make sure that it wasn't that instrumental. So I rewound it by about, I think, 4 or 5 minutes, listened to it all the way through. There was never a voice came across there. So it was not the TV. I went outside, walked around the perimeter, nobody. But even if there had been somebody, it wouldn't have been like I heard this voice inside this church. I actually heard it more legible than you're hearing me right now. Like, it was crystal clear. But the voice was of a female persuasion. I was at complete peace, though. Like, it didn't scare me. Matter of fact, it was like 2 minutes, a minute and a half, 2 minutes before I even turned over after I heard the voice, because like it just seemed so natural. Like, and it took me a few moments to process. And I know y'all are like, well, what'd the voice say? What'd the voice say? The voice told me, I put it on, I made a note of it. Let's see. It said, there are more than 1,000 angels who's either surrounding you or encamped around about you. End of sentence. And then the voice said one more word immediately at the end of that sentence, which the word was remember. There are more than 1,000 angels around you. Remember. That was it. I haven't caved in since that day. That was at least 3.5 weeks ago. I have not caved in one time. The urges have been heavy. When they get heavy, I start crying out to the Lord. But nowhere near to the extent that I cried out to him that day. As the days are passing, yes, there's still been urges, but those urges are diminishing more and more with every time that I overcome the next urge. Brothers and sisters, let me encourage you. When you want deliverance bad enough to do everything you know to do, by fighting the urges, but also by praying earnestly, wholeheartedly crying out to him. Anything is possible. I was talking with one gentleman, so I think it's been almost 4 weeks since I've given in to any of those urges at all. Actually, the pornography urge has probably been closer to 2 months. And the self-pleasuring has been right at about a month. And here the last several days, there's hardly been any urges at all. And before that, it was like, starting out, it was constant all day, every day, especially the longer I went without giving in to the urges. It just got more intense, more intense, more intense, more intense. The more I fought them, the more I gave God gratitude, thanks for setting me free. The lesser it got. But here's the other thing that helped me, I have to admit. When that voice told me there are more than 1,000 angels around you, remember. Now that was a literal, audible voice as you hear me, okay? Now later I asked the Lord, now the Holy Spirit, he's not audible like you hear me. You know, he talks to the spirit man within me. So I asked the Holy Spirit, when I sat up and I finally got done trying to process everything and I finally accepted that I heard an angel. I didn't see the angel. I never once even remotely, not a glimpse, nothing, seen nothing of the angel. I only heard the angel. Well, anyway, once I got done processing that this truly was an angel I heard, I'm sitting here and I start to realize that in the spirit realm, I'm seeing angels all through this church. And I'm like, okay. And I asked the Lord, I said, well, Lord, that angel that spoke to me said there was over 1,000 angels. I said, well, I am incredibly grateful. I'm a little bit without understanding because there's maybe at most a couple hundred angels in here, but that's it. And he told me, he says, oh yeah, that's just the ones on the inside. You've got a whole slew of them guarding the entire perimeter, and they're all strung out through the yard and everything. And I'm like, oh, okay. And at that point, my spirit was able to actually see through the walls of this building. And at that point, I began to see all the angels surrounding this entire property. And it was like a flood, just a massive flood of angels encamped around about this property. From that point on, I realized I'm being watched 24/7. And everything I do is being reported back to my Father. The angels are reporting back to him what I'm doing. They're reporting back to him if I've caved. They're reporting back to him if, how well I've done. And something about knowing that I'm being watched 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There's no way I can self-pleasure anymore. It's just not going to happen. And all of that has came as a result of my heart being 100% sincere and pure. Even though the addiction kept manifesting itself from time to time, my heart, the sincerity of my heart was 100% pure And I think that's where we mess up a lot of times. We plead out and we cry to God for this and that. But it's like, how bad do you really want it? Do you want it bad enough to do what you can never imagine doing? Do you want it bad enough to fight those urges? How bad do you want it? And the Lord sees the degree of how bad we want it. We may not even understand how bad we want it or what extents we're willing to go through to get whatever we're asking for, to get a deliverance or whatever it is. But one thing's for sure, God sees the degree of sincerity and purity in our hearts. Movie Fast and Furious, what's his name? Why have I forgotten that main character's name on the Fast and Furious? Golly, he's so well known. It's been that long since I watched them movies, though, I guess. Vin Diesel. He's racing Brian Spillner, or Paul Walker, whatever name you want to go by, his movie name or his real name. But in the movie, he's racing Brian Spillner. And they're racing for $1 million. And in the movie, Brian Spillner's old lady is pregnant. And Brian Spillner's old lady happens to be Vin Diesel's sister. Vin Diesel wants to let Brian Spillner win because he wants to bless Brian Spillner with $1 million to help take care of his sister and raise that child, which would be his nephew. But they're racing. Brian Spillner can't hear what Vin Diesel says, but they're racing, and Vin Diesel keeps letting off the gas just a little bit. Not much, but just a little bit. And he just, like I said, not that Brian Spillner could hear it, but Vin Diesel goes, "You gotta want it, Brian. You gotta want it." Basically, Brian had to push it to the absolute max. Just pedal to the metal all the way down. Get it and go. Don't give up. Don't get scared. There's no room for fear. Don't get scared and ease off the gas. You gotta want it. And that's where we are. We gotta want it. Bad enough to do whatever it is that God has called us to do. Five and a half, 6 years ago, I was delivered from an addiction to methamphetamines. About 4 years ago, I was delivered from alcohol addiction. And this year, I've been delivered from sexual impurity. Now, I was talking to someone. I was talking to him about this issue, and he says, "Oh my goodness, I'm so glad to know it's not just me that's dealing with this issue." He says, "But wait a minute." He says, "When you stop doing that, isn't it?" And I shut him down. I said, "What, not healthy?" He's like, how'd you know what I was going to say? I was like, because I've already been down that road too. I've already did the research and all that. Yeah, research says that if you quit self-pleasuring and the man holds that stuff inside, that it's very, very unhealthy and will cause this or that or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and that's what's held me back for so many years, or what has held me bound to that sin for so many years, is because, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, I was feeling guilty about doing it. And so I began doing research, and that's what I found. That's what Satan wanted me to find, to keep me in that bondage. And and I began to tell him, I said, listen, you got to understand something. If God calls it sin, but the scientists tell us that it'll kill us. Well, I don't think scientists actually said it would kill us, but said something about it being very unhealthy and maybe it could cause cancer or something. I don't know. But if God is calling it sin and telling us not to do it, and he's the creator of the entire universe and everything within the universe, but we got these scientists over here saying, if we don't commit this sin, then we're going to have major health problems. I'm like, who are you going to trust? He's like, oh my goodness, you got a point. Yeah. And he said, and I began to tell him at that point how long it had been since I had last done anything. And he's like, really? He's like, so it's really possible to actually quit this fully? And at that time, I think I was about, at that time I had that conversation, I think I was about a week and a half clean. And it was probably 3 or 4 days after that conversation I failed one time. And that one time after that conversation that I failed was my last time that I failed. But on that conversation, he's like, it's really possible? I'm like, brother, with God, all things are possible. It's really possible. And he went on to tell me, he's like, man, I'm so glad that I'm not the only one struggling with this. I'm so glad you opened up to me about this and talked to me about this. Men, you're not alone in this struggle. But when you read, when you have this understanding that it's unhealthy to not relieve the pressure, that's what Satan wants us to believe. And these idiots, they do their scientific research, and angels and demons are real. They do this scientific research. Angels and demons are real. Okay? Angels can protect us. Demons can cause hurt. So these scientists are doing their research. The demons are in the background secretly doing things to taint that research in order to give the outcome that they want that scientist to see. And then that scientist writes a report, yeah, it's unhealthy to not relieve the pressure. Completely contradicting what the scripture tells us. Wow, how did I go into all that? Well, guess I'm going to have a video right here in of itself to edit. That, or I'll just edit this into one big video into something that maybe is more like a movie. Hey, it's your show, Lord. You lead the way. Maybe this is why I couldn't go to sleep, because the Lord had some stuff to say through me. I know He's been waiting for me to tell these testimonies, and I've been putting it off. A lot of the reason I was putting it off, though, is because I wanted to make sure my deliverance was real before I talked about it. And yeah, it's real. It is truly real. That I know with a confidence. And, it's something I can say for, this is going to sound really weird to most of y'all. But I can say that with a confidence. And it comes from, it's confidence of faith, I guess. Just knowing that I know. The Lord's not going to tell us to do something that's going to harm us. And if not, relieving pressure was going to harm us, He would have given us another out. And the Lord's He's done so much, given me so many testimonies. At this point, I just already know that I know that I know. And there's, where back, 20 years ago, I'd have been like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know about all this. I don't think this is right. I wouldn't have, I'd have had major stress if I tried to exercise some different kinds of faith. Anyway, but when you really get deep off in tune with the Lord, you just don't have no stresses no more. You really don't. It's like, I keep crying out to the Lord, I desire a wife. But at the same time, I have to make sure that when I'm praying and telling the Lord my desire, that I'm telling Him, however, Lord, only You know what's to come of that. And if by me having a wife is going to keep even one soul from heaven, I'd rather remain celibate, even though it means that the desire may always be there. Well, anyway, I go on and tell Him the desires of my heart. But, like I was saying, I got done with I decided to call it quits last night with my studies. And after I called it quits, I realized, or as I was calling it quits, sitting at my desk, I realized, I've been sitting at this desk for hours. And everything that I do throughout the day, where would, just yesterday anyway, in particular, I would have had absolutely no time yesterday for anybody, a wife or anybody. And in order to have time for them, I would have had to stop beneficial productivity and concerns to the ministry in order to give any of my time to anybody. But we know a happy wife, a happy life. And we also know that we're called to, either remain celibate in order to effectively minister the Word of God, or if we marry, we have to keep our household in order. And if our spouse or our children are upset that we're not spending enough time with them, well, now we got to make a choice. What do? Is ministerial things more important, or is family life more important? Whereas a single man, I don't have to worry about that. So it's a hard thing. This is a really, really hard one to live this way. Because I absolutely want to glorify my Lord, and I do not want to do anything in the world to displease him. I don't know. I guess for me, with the knowledge that I have now, if a woman is really, truly ordained by God to be with me, then she's not going to be demanding of my attention during certain seasons anyway. Otherwise, I just have to, I really have just got to get myself determined to be celibate for the rest of my life, so as not to lose even one soul to the pits of hell. Well, I hope by me sharing all of this, I hope that there are those of you out there, which I know there are many of you out there, going through the same thing that I'm going through, having the same thoughts, dealing with the same addictions, fighting the same urges. But in all of it, society has made you feel less of a man if you talk about it, and so you hide it. Even though pretty much all of the world, every human person in the world has done or still does do what carnally seems to come naturally, yet is a sin. Then everybody wants to call you names, and you're the scapegoat. Basically you're taking the entire world's sins on that subject matter on top of your shoulders, and you're going to get the full force of the weight of it coming down on you. And I guarantee there are going to be so many idiots that will stone me to death for this video. Whether literally or metaphorically, there are going to be many idiots that stone me to death over this. But that's okay, as long as the ones that need to hear this message and is actually getting something from it, know that they are not alone. Know that there is hope, and know that it is possible to overcome these addictions. Here I am in my pajamas talking to y'all like this, all kinds of vulnerable here. Not in that manner. Oh. Definitely not looking professional at all, that's for sure. But hey, it is what it is. Guess I'll go try to lay back down again. Oh, wow, I've been on this. I've been talking for almost an hour and a half. Wow. Good morning, friends. Holy kisses.